I just want to remind everyone, if you want to speak at this meeting, you need to fill out a speaker slip before the meeting starts.
The time is now 4:44 on Monday, February 24th. I call the Special Affairs Committee meeting to order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Alamin?
Present.
Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Priestley?
Present.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Present.
Ms. Burns?
Present.
Ms. Mashat?
Present.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett?
Present.
You have 7 members present.
We have 7 members present. It's now time for the reading of the disorderly person city code subsection. Any person that persists in disrupting this meeting will be in violation of the Flint City Code Section 31-10, disorderly conduct, assault and battery, and disorderly persons, and will be subject to arrest for a misdemeanor. Any person who prevents the peaceful and orderly conduct of any meeting will be given 1 warning. If they persist in disrupting the meeting, that individual will be subject to arrest. Violators will be removed from the meetings. Are there any requests for agenda changes and/or additions? Seeing as how there are none, it is now time for public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the City Council or its committees must register before the meeting begins. A box will be placed at the entrance to the council chambers for collection of registrations. No additional speakers or slips will be accepted after the meeting begins. Members of the public shall have no more than 3 minutes per speaker during public comment, with only 1 speaking opportunity per speaker. First public speaker, Madam Clerk.
There is only 1 speaker for this meeting, and that is R.L. Mitchell.
Sounds good.
Good evening, Council. I'm R.L. Mitchell. And renegade R.L. Mitchell, since we want to fight the peoples of Flint about getting our money, for the record, through you, Madam Lashak, through the attorney over there, she got her green on because she's a black Irish, just like the biblical say in Ezekiel. Those who don't know about Ezekiel, ask your smartphone what that means, at the hole in the wall, because she's going to take care of we the peoples no matter what tonight. They had her on Front Street last week while you was gone. I mean, anyway, and another thing, the Red Rooster ain't got no say so. Oh, anyway, like I say, forget about the man of God. No, I'm talking about actually who was your pastor. But because over there at the Hassel Center, I found out that the mayor, the judge told the mayor what to do. She gave it in the mayor's hand. I think the brown person, amigo, because when I do, it threatened me, I would say, don't you never do this in my court. This is going to be dealt with, sir. But But she told, whatever the mayor say, the night goes. And that just goes to show you the lawyer gonna deal with the judge across the street. She ain't got that green on for nothing, like a hole in one, at Tiger Woods. And remember, look up Ezekiel, America, then you'll see what she all about. And to you, Ms. Shaq, about that, my junior high school of Whittier and the 8th Ward. And you got one over there too in your ward, sir. McKinley Junior High School. It all happened when I was a teenager. They stopped my 8th grade and told me to finish 9th grade over on McKinley. And that school been stopped and it's still there. Just because people like Mashak don't want to hurt the peoples in the 7th Ward by putting a $3 million roof on the Whittier and let it rot out, talking about black mold, and now the people don't know whether to tear it down or what. But Mashak gonna give the word after this meeting tonight. Watch and see what it say. And you, what you gonna do about McKinley, sir? You got the same situation. When they shipped them darkies over there from Whittier to McKinley, and the popo had to guard them on the bus. I didn't know they were doing some Mississippi stuff in Flint. If I would have known that, I would be the first one to throw a punch at one of them rednecks or whatever they is, and Mashak keep coming back because I think I've been hitting.
Thank you. Seeing as how that was our only public speaker, it is now time for council response. Council members may respond once to all public speakers. Only after all public speakers have spoken, an individual council member's response shall be limited to 2 minutes. Is there any council member who wishes to speak during council response?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward, you have the floor.
thank you so much. So I would like to invite the community to please come out to our Black History Student Creativity Contest. The officers of the 1st, 2nd, and the 7th Ward, we have put together a dynamic program where we're showcasing the literary talents and the creative expression talents of our community's youth. So it's going to be this Thursday at the Gloria Coles Flint Public Library, and it's going to start promptly at 6 o'clock. So if you would like to see something positive and amazing from our young scholars happening right here in our city, we invite you to please come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like the floor during council response? Seeing as how there's no one else, this now ends council response. I'll move on to the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the body?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 4th Ward.
I move to send the consent agenda to council.
There has been a motion to send to council. Is there support? Moved and properly supported by the councilman in the 1st Ward. Are there any separations?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward.
thank you. I would like to separate the appointment of Peggy Stribling, please.
All righty. Are there any more separations?
And you know what, just full separation.
All right, there's been complete separations. Moving on to resolutions, which is our first appointment, which is Resolution 25003-9-T, appointment Roderick L. Green, 3rd Ward, Flint Planning Commission. What is the pleasure of the body?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward.
I move that we send this resolution to council.
There has been a motion made to send this resolution to council. Is there support? Moved and properly supported by the councilman in the 1st Ward. Is there discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward, you have the floor.
Thank you. So, Mr. Green, could you, through you, Madam Chair, can Mr. Green please approach the lectern?
Mr. Green, would you please join us at the lectern? Mr. Mitchell, please stop yelling out. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Green.
Good afternoon.
All right, so thank you so much for joining us today. So, just wanted to highlight a few things. So the first thing is, are you aware that you are being recommended for appointment to the Planning Commission?
Yes,
Okay, very good. All right, and you were appointed by Mayor Neely?
yes,
Okay, great. And so I'm looking at your professional history. You've done a lot working with the scholars in the community. So first I would like to ask you, how long have you been a member of the community, Mr. Green?
I'm 68 now, but I moved here in 1968. So from then until now, I've been here in Flint. I went to school at Holmes and Northwestern, and then I went to the Navy, came back, and I'm still here in the community.
Okay, all right. So you just moved here, huh? That's what I hear. I said, so you just moved here, huh?
Oh, well, no, not just moved here. I've been living here for a while.
All right, and can you also, so thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about the work that you have done in the community. You done a lot of volunteer work with the kids, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah. So can you talk to us about that?
I have coached in the community. I started out with the boys basketball. I've also coached baseball. I've also coached soccer. I've also coached wrestling. So I've coached boys and girls basketball. That's my passion. And I guess a little over 30 years I've been in the community coaching girls and boys basketball. I have a couple of proud moments that I've had with my girls winning some championships in the community leagues. So I'm proud of that. I had a couple of boys that have won some championships also. So it's just so many of them that have been winners for me because I coach from the heart, and I just fill myself up and just let it go, and I teach them all that I know, and they come back with a successful outcome.
Okay. All right. So thank you. And I know that the way that you feel about the community you're passionate to serve, you will take that same passion to the planning commission, because that's a very important commission within the city.
Okay.
And so, they make major decisions, and I think that your resume says you're qualified, your heart says that you're dedicated, and the fact that you are here tonight shows that you want it. And so I definitely appreciate you for coming out, Mr. Green. Thank you for taking, the baton to serve, because we need this. We need residents that are concerned, just like you, to make major decisions so Flint can get to where we want it to be. We're always a work in progress, but we need dedicated residents like you to continue to take the charge so we can continue to work. As council, we can't do it all. We appoint others with like minds and like hearts to get the job done. So I'm happy that you are here. You brought your beautiful wife with you today, so we can go ahead and move this city forward. I hate that it sounds cliche, but it's one of the realest statements that we can say when we talk about moving it forward. So thank you so much, Mr. Green. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like the floor in the first round of discussion?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 4th Ward.
Mr. Green, my colleague said everything that I wanted to say, but your name is really familiar to me.
Okay.
You went to Holmes.
Yes.
You went to Northwestern, but you're 2 years ahead of me. And this is why I'm asking, is why would I know your name?
Oh, okay.
Did you do music or did you do athletics?
I did music and athletics. I was in the band. I was in the marching band, and I also ran track
Under
at
George
Northwestern.
Creer.
Who?
George Creer?
Yes.
What did you play?
I was actually played French horn at the time he got there.
You and I need to talk.
I played trumpet in the 10th grade, and then I switched to French horn as a junior, and
Okay.
I finished out with French horn.
Okay, obviously we know each other from band.
Oh, okay.
I was the flute player, and I was also concert mistress in the orchestra and violin.
Okay,
so
it's coming back to
I
me.
knew your name, but I could not face it. And I'm sitting there going, "Where do I know him?" And that's why I asked. So maybe we'll get a chance to talk and reminisce about our wonderful King George Creer III.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like the floor in the first round of discussion? Is there anyone else who would like the floor in the second round of discussion? Seeing as how there's no one who would like the floor in the second round of discussion, it is now time for the roll call vote. This is to send appointment 250039-T, appointment of Roderick L. Green, 3rd Ward, Flint Planning Commission to council. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Alamin?
Yes.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. That appointment will move to council. Thank you, sir. Yep, you can have a seat. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to appointment 250057-T, which is the reappointment to the Citywide Advisory Council, Peggy Stribling for the 2nd Ward. What is the pleasure of the body?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward.
I would like to send that resolution to council.
It's been moved that this resolution be sent to council. Is there support? Moved and properly supported by the councilman in the 1st Ward. Is there anyone who would like the floor for the first round of discussion?
Madam Chair,
Councilwoman in the 2nd Ward, you have the floor.
so through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. Stribling, could she
Ms.
approach the
Stribling, will
lectern?
you please join us at the lectern?
Good evening.
Hello, Ms. Stribling.
Probably pull the mic down.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you are not brand new to serving in the community. So so how long have you been a resident of the city of Flint?
1971.
1971.
Yes.
All right. And was all that time spent in the 2nd Ward?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Even better.
Same place.
All right. And so so this is a reappointment for you to the Citywide Advisory Council. And so you do know that you are being recommended to the Citywide Advisory Council, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, looking at your resume, as we did before, yeah, you are very involved within the city. So can you just talk to us a little bit about your involvement in the city of Flint, and the things that you have done on a volunteer basis in the community?
Well, I came to Flint in 71. I started working with attorney Empson Robertson in 73, well, later part of 72. And then in 73, I got hired with General Motors, and I worked with them for 35 years as customer service. So I waited. I retired in 2008, and I gave myself a break for 3 years. Then in 2011, I started volunteering with the police department, and I served them for 7 years. I then transitioned to a program called Home Care Program with VAAA, and I've done that from 2019 to 2022. And then I resigned from that because it was kind of out of my range. So in 2023, April, I also served on the ARFA committee, advisory committee, for about 6 months. So now I'm doing nothing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Peggy. Because, you know, the Citywide Advisory Council, that's a committee that's very important because they allocate grant dollars. And so that's a highly essential committee in this community. And I
Well,
would
now,
like to thank you for taking the charge to serve.
I forgot to tell you that
Go ahead.
in 2013, I was on the Flint Planning Commission also.
Oh, okay.
So I have done quite a bit of volunteering and being active in the community.
Clearly, you are not new to this.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for, what is this, several years later? In 2025, you're taking the charge to serve in the 2nd Ward. You know, it's hard getting residents to take time out of their busy schedule because people have lives, you know, just things to do, interests. But, you know, to take that time out and to dedicate their skills, talents, and abilities to the city of Flint, that's definitely commendable. And I couldn't do my job without great residents like you. So thank you so much for sticking and staying in the city and being a part of the 2nd Ward as we transition and change some things to improve our neighborhood.
Yeah,
All right.
that's my passion, people passion. Thank you.
Absolutely. So anything else you would like to add before I hand my time over?
Well, I look forward to it if you all would accept me. I just want to be a part of and an access to the community in any way that I possibly can.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Peggy. And that's my time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like the floor in the first round of discussion? Is there anyone who would like the floor in the second round of discussion? Seeing as how there's no one who would like the floor in the second round of discussion, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We can now move on to the roll call vote, and this is to send resolution. Excuse me, I got it, thank you. This is to send appointment 250057-T, which is the reappointment to the Citywide Advisory Council, Peggy Stribling from the Second Ward to council. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley? Yes. Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer's not in. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. Mr. Alamin?
Yes.
Vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. That appointment has been sent to council. What is the pleasure of the body?
Madam Chair, motion to
Councilwoman in
adjourn.
the Fourth Ward has made a motion to adjourn. Is there support? It's been supported by the councilman in the First Ward. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. The time is now 5:04 p.m. on Monday, February 24th, 2025. I call this Special Affairs Committee meeting. It is now adjourned. We will have 5 minutes to fill out any speaker slips for the council meeting.
It is 5:30 PM, and I am calling this city council meeting to order for the purpose of electing a city council president in accordance with the Flint City Charter. And I'm going to start with the roll call. Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Priestley?
Present.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Present.
Ms. Burns?
Present.
Ms. Mashat?
Present.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett?
Present.
There are 7 members present.
Madam Clerk,
Ms. Priestley?
I make a motion to move the reorganization of council to the end of the meeting, after all resolutions.
Is there a second for Ms. Priestley's?
I have a question. Are you moving it after the third ward vote too?
Yes, I think that's a resolution, isn't it?
Is it a resolution? It's not a resolution.
So after the third ward appointment,
So the very last item on the agenda?
yes.
Okay, Ms. Priestley has made a motion to move the organization of the council to the end of the agenda after the vote on the third ward appointment. So I have a roll call on this motion. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett?
Yes.
And the vote is 7 yes, 0 no. So we will proceed to the rest of the agenda.
So now it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman El Alamin, could you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. So now it is time for our prayer or blessing, but before we do so, we would like to acknowledge those that may have transitioned. Do we have anyone on this body that would like to acknowledge someone?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Winfrey Carter.
I would like to have a moment of silent prayer for the family of Mother Jessie Mae Cummings, the family of Mrs. Marion Collins, and the family of Mrs. Shirley Collins.
All right. Anyone else?
And you know, also I would like to also acknowledge the fact that today makes 1 year of the late Councilman Eric Mays of the First Ward. Today is the anniversary of his death. Thank you.
All right. So I believe that was the 24th.
Today
Is it 24th?
Yes.
Not 25th? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we want to acknowledge that. Anyone else? All right. So I would also like to acknowledge Miss Tiffany Needham Chase, the family of Tiffany Needham Chase, as well as the family of LaToya Johnson. That is the family of LaToya Johnson.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, the family of Tiffany Mayers.
Pardon?
The family of Tiffany Mayers. She lost her brother. I'm not sure of his name.
Okay, say it. I didn't hear you.
Tiffany Mayers lost her brother. I'm not sure of his name, but if we could have a moment of silence for her family.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're about to have a moment of silence starting now. All righty, thank you. So, Councilwoman Priestley, could you please lead us in the prayer of blessing?
Yes. Oh God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a God of love who is with us now in this very room. You never leave us or forsake us. Your grace has brought us safe thus far, and your grace will lead us home, Lord. We thank you for making each of us in this room, every person we meet, every citizen of the city, and every city in your own image, with dignity and infinite worth. We thank you for the calling you have given every one of us to be good stewards of your creation, to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so we pray that you would be glorified tonight through the decisions of the City Council. We pray that we would have the eyes to see how our lives are all connected and how our common good is upheld when we listen and respond to those most vulnerable among us. We pray that your kingdom would come in Flint as it is in heaven through your power working in each of these your servants. May your truth be revealed. May your light shine brighter. May the voices of those most silenced be heard loud and clear. Defend their cause, O God, through this governing body tonight. We pray for wisdom, for strength, for courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the interests of others above our own. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image in every person here. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ms. Priestley. So, the reading of the Disorderly Person City Code subsection. Any person that persists in disrupting this meeting will be in violation of Flint City Code Section 3110, disorderly conduct, assault and battery, and disorderly persons, and will be subject to arrest for a misdemeanor. Any person who prevents the peaceful and orderly conduct of any meeting will be given one warning. If they persist in disrupting the meeting, that individual will be subject to arrest. Violators will be removed from meetings. So now it is time for requests for agenda changes. Do we have any changes? All right, seeing that we don't have any, we will go ahead and move forward with public comment. So the first public speaker, Madam Clerk.
The first speaker is R.L. Mitchell.
Hello, City Council. I'm R.L. Mitchell. For the record, a moment of silence for the late Eric Mays and Larry Broadnight. Thank you very much. And another thing about the situation in Flint again, about Miss Peggy, just the way, and the other opponent for what's the title of this, she going for this title, and the guy on Holbrook Street going for the title too, but now I know what happened in 71 to the city of Flint, because Miss Peggy said she come to Flint in 71, and I was just getting out of high school in 71, and they had a riot on that day, the worst riot in Flint. The Pope I ever seen, and I was on my way to Vietnam too. And it messed up the whole president, messed up Nixon, the whole thing, because they didn't know what to. Anyway, she said 3 years after, she went directly to work for 3 years and went on the police department, I was wondering why Flint was so smooth, because people like her, like Inez Brown, I wonder if she know Inez Brown, because I'm still trying to get that name, a director, a leader of director in Flint. That's what, I don't even have to see her. I can tell somebody was in charge of Flint, like it had to be a woman, because when I first met Inez Brown, seemed like she was calling the shots. She just looked at somebody and smiling. I wonder why she talked so low, but she walked up to me and said, "Who are you, sir?" I said, "I'm a sociologist at large." She said, "Where you get that name from?" I said, "Jordan College. I was the first student at Jordan College. I was kicked out because I blew up a microwave in the mess room." And the dean said, "Who did it?" And said, "You out of here." And he said, "What you gonna do now, sir?" I said, "I'll be a sociologist at large." That was Jordan College on Pearson Road, the priest let me use, and that's where Mays was talking about the house of Esther. It's still standing over there empty, just like Whittier is empty and McKinley is empty. In 8th Ward, people ain't doing nothing about Flint. Let the stuff, black moles take over stuff, and people like Miss Priestley talking about, what you gonna do about the Pope, Miss Priestley? How you got him out of the hospital yet? Praying them long prayers and stuff and talking about thy kingdom come, thy will. You don't want God's kingdom to come forth because you're going to be kicking ass and all that junk and put him on the cross and 42 stripes on it. You don't know. What? Who you think you? Oh, I keep coming back. Stay
All
tuned,
right,
America.
thank you. Next public speaker, please.
And the last speaker for this meeting is Taylor Sampson.
Taylor Sampson, 8th Ward resident. I am encouraging all of you to vote for St. Mark's tonight. Liddell, Judy, and Candace, I hope you change your vote from last time it was on the agenda, especially Adele since that's in her ward. I also feel like there's a lot of confusion still taking place with the mayor not being in control of these chambers. So I printed out some basic civics here I'd like to share. The council powers in general, it is the council's role to adopt policies for the city. It is the mayor's role to administer or carry out these policies. The council, being legislative, has the power to enact laws and policies consistent with state law, usually through the enactment of ordinances and resolutions. In general, mayors should remember that the council meeting is just that. It's the council's meeting, not the mayor's meeting. The council sets its own rules and has ultimate control over the agenda. To be effective, the mayor needs the support of the council members. Trust is built by showing even-handedness and fairness to all participants. Trust also requires that the chairperson not use the powers of the chair unfairly to win a point or argument. I'd like to point out for those at home who may not know, but in most towns and cities, the mayor actually attends council meetings. So I'd just like you to stop and think a minute. When's the last time Sheldon Neely has been in these chambers other than a photo op during the day when no one's around? He basically refuses to face the public. There's a lot he should be listening to and seeing all these residents in here week after week. They'd really like it and appreciate it. Also, charter cities have each charter govern the voting powers of the mayor. The city charter governs the veto powers of the mayor. A mayor's vote may be overridden by a majority of the council. For us, that is 6 votes. So once again, as I said last week, please do not let certain council members sit up here and act like they have no power over what the mayor may do. They can vote against him and turn down his resolutions. I also would like to read this because there's some other things happening that people may not be aware of. The ACLU believes that official social media pages for elected representatives and government organizations, when they allow the public to make comments on the page, are public forums. Censoring individuals from these pages through blocking accounts or deleting comments can be unconstitutional restriction of their right to free speech under the First Amendment. Michigan has actually had things go to court for that, for local government pages censoring. It's been brought to my attention that the city of Flint is deleting comments on their Facebook page again by residents. So if you have had that happen to you, please start screenshotting any comments you make, because I have paperwork. You can reach out to me. ACLU has flow charts for censorship. They also have sample letters you can go ahead and copy if you need to send it to the clerk's office. And lastly, speaking of Facebook, Liddell, that Facebook request you sent to me will sit in friendship purgatory. So you might as well delete it. Because in order for a friend request to be approved, you have to be a friend.
All right, thank you, ma'am. That's your time. So now it's time for council response. Do we have any council members that would like to respond to the public? All right, so seeing none, we will go ahead and we will move forward with, I would like to respond. So just like I said during special affairs, we would like to invite every single resident and supporter out to our Black History Month Student Creativity Contest, and it is hosted by the First Ward Councilperson, the 7th Ward Councilwoman, and also myself. It is an opportunity for us to allow our scholars to express themselves in a creative form, using social media, and to talk about some Black history themes. So we do have some winners. We have one from Brownell. We also have one from New Standard, as well as we are focusing on the Black Dandelion Convergent Voice, and that is something, a literacy initiative through our first Poet Laureate, Samaj Brown. So we would like to invite everyone to please come and share in the opportunity and the experience. It's going to be very nice. And we want to make sure that we continue to do positive things in our city, because this is the tone and the trend that we're trying to send. We want to make sure, since this body, we put forth a resolution to formally acknowledge every February as African American History Month. So we want to make sure that we're doing something to honor that and to highlight the great works and to also showcase our youth. So again, this will be at the Gloria Coles Flint Public Library this Thursday at 6:00 p.m. So please come out and join us. All right, so now we are moving on in our agenda. We are on the reconsideration for appointments. So reconsideration for appointment 240523. Mr. Chadale Kennedy for the Flint Housing Commission. What's the pleasure of this body?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. El Alamin.
I would like to move 240523/T to council.
You mean, for reconsideration?
I'm sorry, for reconsideration, excuse me.
Oh, okay.
Support.
All right, supported by the councilwoman in the 7th Ward to reconsider resolution 240523. And because it is a reconsideration, there is no debate. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Alamin?
Yes.
Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
7 yes, 0 no. So that resolution 240523 will be reconsidered. So now we're on to the second reconsideration, resolution 240548. The reallocation of ARPA funds for St. Mark Baptist Church. What's the pleasure of the body?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Burns.
I would like to move 240548, reallocation of ARPA funds for St. Mark Missionary Baptist Church for reconsideration.
All right, any support?
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I'll support that motion.
All right, supported by the councilman in the 5th Ward. So the same rule that's spoken before, there's no debate. So roll call, Madam Clerk.
Dr. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Priestley?
No.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
No.
Mr. Pfeiffer is not in. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. Mr. Alamin? No. The vote is 3 yes, 4 no.
The vote is 3 yes, 4 no. That resolution will not be reconsidered. So now we're on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Priestley.
make motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Any support? Supported by the councilman in the 1st Ward. Well, this is with separations.
Right.
So,
Always.
so, any separation?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm asking that council separate 2 appointments just so I can add information that was not included on those or on those resolutions. And that would be number 250053, the appointment of Karen Spencer Key to the Board of Review, and 250055, the appointment of Joshua Moore to the CWAC, Citywide Advisory Council.
Oh, okay, so you would like those 2 separated?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. All right, so,
We'll separate those.
all right, go ahead. So those,
Yeah, if I need to, if a council member needs to separate it, Madam Chair,
Okay.
I will do that separation.
okay, so yeah, well, I'll go ahead and just separate those. So the chair will separate 250053 and 250055 at the recommendation of the clerk. All right, And so, seeing that we don't have any more separations, we will go ahead and vote on the consent agenda. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns is not in. Mr. Fife, I'm sorry, Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
The vote is 6 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 6 yes, 0 no. The consent agenda is approved. So now it's time for the separation of the appointments. The first appointment to be separated is 250053.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms.
I
Priestley.
make a motion to approve 250053.
All right, there's a motion to approve 250053. Any support? Supported by the councilman in the first ward.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Priestley.
through you to the city clerk, could you fill in, give us the dates that need to be filled in and on the blanks?
Yes, so, I'm sorry, I was looking for a resolution. So for the resolution appointing Ms. Karen Spencer Key to the Board of Review,
Yep.
and
Is
the
she
resolved, it's going to be for a 3-year term,
here? 3-year?
commencing upon adoption of this resolution and expiring January 1st, 2028.
What year? 2020, excuse me, I can't hear, there's too much noise.
2028.
2028, thank you. So I make a, Madam Chair, I make a motion to, do we have to amend it?
No,
Okay, okay,
Are we just filling in the blanks?
all right,
Yes.
just fill in the blanks,
Very
okay.
that's just for the record.
All right, I'm done.
And I think the board meeting.
All right. So anyone else in the first round?
Madam Chair, call the question.
Call the question? All right. So there's been a call for the question. Any support?
Support?
All right, supported by the councilman in the fourth ward. So this is a vote to call the question for resolution 250053. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
No.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett? No. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
The vote is 5 yes, 2 no.
The vote is 5 yes, 2 no, so that call the question passes. So now it's time to vote on resolution 250053. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Burns? Yes. Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no, so that appointment passes. So now we're on to the second appointment, which is 250055, the appointment of Joshua Moore.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Priestley.
motion to approve.
All right, so there's a motion to approve. Any support? Supported by the councilman in the
told him not to
first
go.
ward. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, call the
ahead.
question.
All right.
No, we need to fill in the blanks.
Sorry, I withdraw. We need to fill in the blanks.
Oh, okay. So, any discussion in the first round?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
through you to the clerk, can she please fill in the blanks?
All right. Madam Clerk?
Okay, for the appointment of Joshua Moore to the Citywide Advisory Council. And that will be a term of March 1st, 2025 to February 28th, 2028.
All right. All righty.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
call the question.
All right, so there's a call for the question. Any support? Supported by the councilman in the first ward. So now this vote is to call the question. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett? No. Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
No.
Ms. Burns?
No.
Vote is 4 yes, 3 no.
So the vote is 4 yes, 3 no. That call for the question fails. So now we are still in the first round. Anyone in the first round? Or anyone else in the second round? All right, so seeing there's no one, we will go ahead and we will call.
Wait a minute, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We on the question for the motion?
Yes.
Are we
Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I want to say something.
Okay, so this is the second round.
Yeah, is Mr. Moore in the audience?
No, I told him he didn't have to come because there's no questions for him in the committee.
Well, it may have been some questions for him during council meeting. Okay. I'll just save my, I'll yield my time. Thank you.
All right, anyone else to the second round? All right, so seeing there's no one in the second round, we will go ahead and we will call for the vote. And this is for resolution.
I actually told him to come for special affairs.
All right, so. Okay, so this is for appointment 250055, the appointment to the Citywide Advisory Council, Joshua J. Moore for the 4th Ward. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin is not in. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Mashat?
Yes.
Mr. Alamin? Yes. The vote is 7 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 7 yes, 0 no. That appointment is approved. So now we are at the,
Third.
let's see, is this for president or for 3rd ward? Let me see. 1 second. Third ward? Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. All right, so now it is time to consider the applicants for the 3rd Ward council members. And so the consideration of applicants will continue for a total of 30 rounds of council members' roll calls and votes for candidates. By the 15th round, if the council body have not reached a majority vote for any one candidate, each council member will be allowed 3 minutes in total to discuss their reasoning for supporting or opposing each candidate. The consideration roll call will then continue until the 30th round. All right, so Madam Clerk.
Okay, I just want to note for the record that technically this will be round 169 that we would be starting on. However, we are going to start from 1 and go through to 30 for the purpose of this consideration. And as before, we will start with the next in line where we left off with the last vote of rounds.
Okay.
And that is going to be, and as before, you wanted to state the name of the person who you want to appoint to the 3rd Ward council seat. And we're going to start with Mr. Alamin. Dr. Lewis,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter is not in. Ms. Burns,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat,
Carrie Nelson.
for the purpose of this consideration, Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett. Ms. Winfrey Carter.
Biggs Levy.
That's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 3 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy.
All right, so there's 4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 3 for Biggs Levy.
Round 2, Dr. Lewis,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat,
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin. 4 for Mr. Nelson, 3 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 for Carrie Nelson, 3 for Biggs Levy.
Round 3, Ms. Priestley,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin.
Be voting on this.
Dr. Lewis.
Carrie Nelson.
Abstain.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 3 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 3 for Biggs Levy.
Round 4, Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns,
I abstain because the conflict, because this will be in court on March 17th.
Ms. Mashat,
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett,
This guy keeps sending this stuff to me about these random.
Mr. Alamin, Dr. Lewis,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley.
Carrie Nelson.
That's 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, and 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 5, Ms. Burns,
I abstain because the conflict, because this will be in court on March 17th.
Ms. Mashat,
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett, Mr. Alamin, Dr. Lewis,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley,
Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
that's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 6, Ms. Mashat,
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett, Mr. Alamin, Ms. Lewis,
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley,
Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns,
I abstain because we'll be in court on March 17th, and it's a conflict of interest.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 7, Mr. Jarrett, Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain because the conflict of interest will be in court March 17th.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 1 abstention.
So 4 for Carrie Nelson, 3 for Biggs Levy, and 1 for 1 abstention.
That's 4, 2, and 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 8, Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain because we'll be in court March 17th.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 9, Dr. Lewis?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? It's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 10, Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
It's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
4 for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 11, Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson, 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 12, Ms. Burns?
I abstain.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 13, Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 14, Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain because of conflict of interest.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson, 1 abstention.
4 for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention.
Round 15, Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns?
I abstain because of conflict of interest.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 1 abstention.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy, and 1 abstention. All right, so now we are in the 15th round, and this is the opportunity for each council member to take 3 minutes to have a discussion on the progress of voting. So who would like to be the first to take the floor?
I thought we did it this way.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilwoman Seven. Okay. Got you. All right, so Mr. L. Alamin. All righty. So go ahead, Ms. Priestley.
I have stated on the record several times my feelings towards each one of the candidates, and I stand by that.
All right, Ms. Winfrey Carter.
I've already stated on the record my vote, and I will continue to vote for Biggs Levy.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Burns.
I don't need an opportunity. We're going to court. She'll have her day in court.
All right, Ms. Mashat.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Generally, when I take an opportunity to speak, I choose to speak on why I am choosing to vote for the person that I'm choosing to vote for. I tend to stay away from anything other than what is going to bring positivity to the situation. In light of recent events at the last, I believe it was committee meeting, one of the candidates chose to use rhetoric that is very harmful to population in our city. That candidate chose to double down on their rhetoric and also use verbiage that could lead to someone possibly taking their own life. And in light of those things occurring, I will stand by my commitment to not say that person's name simply because of those things. On the council, we serve everyone in our city. We do not get to single out populations. And when I say we do not get to single out populations, I mean even in a negative way, even in a sense to where you're using transphobic slurs or where you are basically saying that they should be left without a family because of a lifestyle that they are living. I cannot in good conscience ignore a huge segment of our population who is deeply affected by those words that were spoken. And so out of respect for them, I will not say that person's name. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Jarrett. Okay. So I will go ahead and I will use the remainder 3 minutes. So this body made it abundantly clear that homophobic slurs is not okay. The councilwoman in the 6th ward, she said that she would not support candidates that use homophobic slurs. The councilman in the 8th ward said they will not support candidates that use homophobic slurs. And so this is something that we want to make sure that we stand by. When we had our 3rd ward candidate, when she came up to the lectern and she began to make negative comments. Excuse me. So let's pause the time. I hear some yelling out. Let's not do that. That's not appropriate during the council meeting. Thank you. So give me 4 seconds back, please. Thank you. And so we must stand by what we say we believe in. We had someone up there, the 3rd ward candidate, calling people butch. We had the 3rd ward candidate telling people that their parents should be ashamed of themselves. We had the same 3rd ward candidate yelling out from the back of the chambers. Is this the kind of behavior that we want to see on this body? Is homophobic comments okay for some and not others? We have to be consistent on what we stand on. So if you stand for chaos, if you don't want chaos, we should not support that kind of behavior. And consistently, Ms. Biggs-Levy brings negativity and bad rhetoric to our meetings. No one should be called a derogatory name. No one should be told that their parents should be ashamed of them. No one should be told those things. No one should be slandered from that lectern from someone that would like to take this seat. We're talking about how we want to move the city forward. We can't move forward with someone that is consistently using rhetoric to set us back. That's not okay. We can't move forward with someone, the same individual, that's bringing unnecessary chaos. When you bring them to order, they continue to yell out. And it's troubling to hear my colleagues continue to say the same name when this person continues to convey the same bad behavior. This is not the kind of representation that Flint deserves. This is not the legacy that Councilman Murphy would like to see. This is not the kind of legacy that I trust Mr. Green and the other residents in the 3rd Ward that they want to see. If they do, it's fine. You let them vote for it. But again, according to our council rules, we can't appoint someone that consistently breaks council rules. We cannot do that. And in good faith, I will not do that. So as Ms. Levy continues to be disruptive, as she continues to use homophobic slurs that violates rules, I can't support that. So we're going to move on to the clerk. We're on the 16th round.
Right, starting at round 16. Dr. Lewis,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley. Carrie Nelson. Ms. Winfrey Carter.
Biggs-Levy.
Ms. Burns is not in. Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett.
Biggs-Levy.
Mr. Alamin. That's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs-Levy.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs-Levy.
Round 17, Ms. Priestley. Carrie Nelson. Ms. Winfrey Carter.
Biggs-Levy.
Ms. Burns is not in. Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin. Dr. Lewis.
Carrie Nelson.
It's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs-Levy.
4 for Nelson, 2 for Biggs-Levy.
Round 18. Ms. Winfrey Carter.
Biggs-Levy.
Ms. Burns is not in. Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin. Dr. Lewis.
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley. Carrie Nelson. It's 2 votes for Ms. Biggs-Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs-Levy.
Round 19. Ms. Burns is absent. Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin. Dr. Lewis.
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley. Carrie Nelson. Ms. Winfrey Carter.
Biggs-Levy.
That's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs-Levy.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs-Levy.
It's round 20. Ms. Mashat.
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley? Carrie Nelson. Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns is absent. That's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 21. Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Priestley? Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Burns is absent. Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
That's 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson.
4 for Carrie Nelson, 2 votes for Biggs Levy.
Round 22. Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley? Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 votes for Biggs Levy.
Round 23, Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley? Nelson. Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? It's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 24. Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Carrie Nelson.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 25. Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 votes for Biggs Levy.
Round 26. Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
It's 4 votes from Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 27. Mr. Jarrett? Mr. Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy, 4 for Mr. Nelson.
4 for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 28. Mr. El Alamin? Dr. Lewis?
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley?
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter?
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat?
Carrie Nelson.
Mr. Jarrett? 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 votes for Ms. Biggs Levy. Round 29. Dr. Lewis,
Nelson.
Ms. Priestley,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat. Carrie Nelson. Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin.
Nelson.
4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 for Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy.
Round 30. Ms. Priestley,
Carrie Nelson.
Ms. Winfrey Carter,
Biggs Levy.
Ms. Mashat. Carrie Nelson. Mr. Jarrett. Mr. Alamin.
Nelson.
Dr. Lewis.
Nelson.
It's 4 votes for Mr. Nelson, 2 for Ms. Biggs Levy.
4 votes for Carrie Nelson, 2 for Biggs Levy. So, Madam Clerk, does that conclude our 30 rounds?
Yes, it does.
All righty. So next on the agenda,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
go ahead, Ms. Mashat.
Can we please announce that after this 30 rounds, and then can we get the final total number that of rounds we're on?
Okay.
And state for the record that after the conclusion of whatever the,
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So, Madam Clerk, could you please announce formally the round that we left off on?
Including the 30 that you just did, that would take you to,
Can you say it one more time? I know I was coughing.
I'm sorry, 69. I'm gonna say 199.
All right, so we have concluded the third ward appointment vote at 199. Okay, thank you. So now we're moving on to
so
the,
Madam Chair, request for information.
go ahead.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, after a total of 199 rounds, we still have not been able to appoint a third ward candidate? I just wanted that stated on the record in that way. Thank you.
Not a problem. All right. All right, so as we move on from the third ward council member appointment.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
All righty. So there's a motion to adjourn. Any support? Supported by the councilman in the first ward. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Alamin? Yes. Dr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Priestley?
Yes.
Ms. Winfrey Carter is not in. Ms. Burns is absent. Ms. Mashat? Yes. Mr. Pfeiffer is absent. Mr. Jarrett? Yes. The vote is 5 yes, 0 no.
The vote is 5 yes, 0 no. This meeting is officially adjourned.
6:29.
At 6:29.